Doing a little bit of a crop report here. So today is an important day, and I mean, I knew it was coming, and you know, I didn't like completely forget that it was my anniversary today, our anniversary, Tami and I. But I had a lapse of memory, maybe yesterday, let's say, that it had already arrived. And so Tami said something about an anniversary, and I was like, whose anniversary? Not a good idea. But to be fair, you know, I'm not always completely on my game. I can totally admit that. So Tami, for my anniversary present, she bought a multi-pack of reading glasses from Costco that she hoped would be more attractive or fit my face better. That didn't go well. No, I didn't open the pack. Let's just say that we didn't try them on. So that's, you know, just part of the fun of life. We're in a winter wheat field. So this is, we're growing this with Hardings. I have a little more than a pivot and then another small pivot over there. So about 170 acres of winter wheat. And obviously winter wheat is way ahead of the other crops because it was planted last fall. So it's fully headed out and it's just finishing up flowering. I never understood what they meant when they said that grain flowered, because there's not a really pretty flower on wheat, but it does flower. And so it's finishing flowering and starting to fill the little kernels. So yeah, it's great to see it coming together. Yeah, nice crop of winter wheat. Looks good. Okay, so I'm still here in Harding's winter wheat field. I want to kind of show you what flowers are on wheat. So here is a head, and you just see there's little teeny, little white petals kind of growing out the side, and that's the wheat flowering. Like say, as a kid, if somebody would have told me that wheat flowers, I would have said, well, you're crazy. I've never seen a flower on wheat. But it does flower, so that's how it pollinates. And so, yes, wheat has flowers. Who knew? Okay, one last little bit of clarification. Tami probably didn't buy those glasses for my anniversary, like for our anniversary as a present. It just happened that she did buy them for me yesterday or the day before. And I'm sure it was just a small, you know, spouse improvement idea that she had. And anyway, most of us know how that normally turns out. But I mean, they're very nice glasses. They would look amazing on my mother. Oh, so this crazy pivot, this is the Cook Flat. It's a really pretty place down here along the river. So this is that same canola field that had all those little teeny baby canola that I was unplugging nozzles. Anyway, now we have some volunteers in this field that are not in the row. And so we've come along and inter-row cultivated, and then they'll bring a crew in. And when you pull weeds out by hand, for some reason they call that roguing. So a roguing crew will come in here and just go along and pick out the weeds that aren't, or the canola that are not supposed to be there. Like this one, he almost died from the cultivator. And like here's these little guys here, they're not in the row. And so they are left over, well, even this big guy. See, he's not right in the row where the planter was. So he's the, and the problem is that those off types will have pollen. And you're like, well, there's not very many of them, and there's not a crazy number of them. But if they have pollen, that pollen can spread and cause problems because it'll be the wrong variety mixing with other varieties. So it makes a big difference in your hybridity. And we need to talk about hybridity because it is a critical and an amazing part of our plant and animal history. The mixing of varieties is a big thing that's been done for a long time to produce new varieties that are more favorable. Either they grow better, or the properties of the plant or the crop is more in line with what humans need. With animals, it's done all the time. We cross different lines of cattle all the time. There's genetic complications that can happen if animals or plants that are too closely related keep inbreeding for several generations. There's recessive genes that we all carry, but they're pretty rare. And so if you have children with somebody that is not closely related, it's very rare that those recessive genes line up with each other. If they mate and they're closely related and they happen to have two of the same recessive genes, which is much more common in the same family line, then that recessive gene will manifest itself. And then, you'll have, there could be diseases, weakness to your immunity system. So anyway, we'll talk about it a little bit more later as related to plants. But this whole crossing two distinct varieties of plants or breeds of cattle or horses or whatever often produces an amazing offspring that has more vigor. And because there's no recessive genes that are lining up with each other. I just wanted to show you that these baby canola have really grown up in the last 2 weeks. They cabbaged out nicely with their big leaves at the bottom, and now they're bolting. So with canola, when they start to elongate, get taller, and start sending up their flower buds, we call that bolting. So we're in the bolting stage here on the canola. And so then very soon here, we'll be bringing in the bee. Well, they'll start flowering, later next week, where there'll be enough flowers to support, well, I don't know, 4 days, probably 4 days from now, that we'll be pushing. 4 or 5 days from now, we'll be putting the bees in here and all the tents, and so that we can make hybrids. Because the pollen from the males, which are over here, and they're clearly a different kind of plant. They've got bigger leaves, and they're delayed. They're not bolting as quickly, and so timing the two different types of canola is kind of important as well, because you need to have the pollen at the same time that the females are opening their flowers. So timing the two different types of plant is kind of tricky. We use mowers to kind of clip the males or the females to stagger, well, to slow them down to match up with the other variety. So anyway, it's a pretty amazing process where we're crossing two very different types of canola to form a hybrid offspring that is a perfect cross between two parent lines. All right, so I'm here at the Cook Flat pump. We call this field number 5, but it also has a name. It's called the Cook Flat because the homesteaders that originally settled this piece of land, there's still a barn foundation and everything next to our field, and they were the cooks. I didn't know them personally. That was a long time ago. Anyway, the pivot quit on me during the night. That never happens. Actually, it does happen quite often in the night. And the computer said it was an alignment fault. So that would normally mean that a motor, a drive shaft, a tire, or a micro switch was died on us. But the pivot was still straight. And when I hit the button, it just went again. I walked in and inspected the towers and everything looked fine. So it's one of those mystery things. You just don't know. You don't know what happened. And that's a little bit frustrating. It's like a weak contactor or something that popped open and the whole thing stopped in the electronics part of it. So it's early in the morning. We'll start her up again. All right, well, the pivot seems to be moving along now. I don't know, it's definitely got to be a weak contactor. I've got to get the electricians out on Monday and just replace a few things, even if they can't tell which one it is. Oh, there goes my seatbelt alarm, of course, but I am driving through a field. Not really worried about my seatbelt. I've got to stop and jump out and set the safeties. I thought I should probably clarify. It is our anniversary today, but Tami and I did fly to Michigan here a couple of days ago to go look at some concrete equipment. I know that's pretty romantic, but the cool part is we flew into Detroit and then drove over to Kalamazoo. I don't even hear that binging anymore. It's such a common thing for us to hear it on the farm because you're jumping in and out of your truck. But anyway, so we rented a blue Mustang convertible and we went and saw old neighborhoods where Tami and I and the kids used to live in Farmington, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. But also Tami grew up in the Detroit area. Oh, I know. And so we went and saw the home where she lived when she was a teenager and went to her high school and drove around the different neighborhoods so she could see where all of her old boyfriends used to live and stuff like that. And so anyway, it was nice. Lots of memories, and it was fun driving around in a convertible for a few days. It was very hot. I did get a little bit too much sun driving around with the top down. But we had a great time. So that's why I didn't, like we kind of had done our little anniversary trip and then we came home and I kind of forgot that it's actually today. So now I've got to do some work to get this all sorted out. Okay, we're back on field number 1, which is our first Durham field, and it's kind of a fun time. The heads are just starting to come. You can see this head just starting to come out. You got all the awns, I think they're called, coming out the top. And so it's gonna head out here this next week. All of a sudden we'll see a whole bunch of heads. You can just see that head is just starting to burst out the side, break through the flag leaf and come up. And the leaves are looking really quite good. I mean, you can see the odd place where you'll see a little touch of, some spots or whatever, but so far the leaves, look, the flag leaves look very healthy. Our solar panels are functioning properly, and the field is filling in beautifully. Looks great. You can see some of the flag leaves starting to drop over sideways there. That's a beautiful flag leaf there. But a lot of the flags are still pointing up, but as they come out, they'll pop over. So beautiful. It's coming along nice. I just got to probe for moisture and see whether to let that pivot go around one more time or whether to switch over to the beans. Okay, so now I'm at field number 7, I guess we call this. This is a smaller field. It's only 65 acres, and it is right next to the main yard where the incubators and the corrals and everything are. So it's only the size of half of a field, and you can see from behind me is starting to turn yellow. There's this field, we've got 4 rows of males and then 16 rows of females. it's the way we plant, we have 20% males and 80% females. And so now that we're flowering, we're starting to flower. This is early flower. We might be like at 5% flower. We've placed some of the bees. It's fairly early in the morning, so they're just starting to get warm enough to move, but you're starting to see some of the leafcutter bees move. The trays that they are hatching out of are up there hanging in the top of the shelter, and then the blocks where they're going to lay the eggs are there on the back of the shelter. We have to have a decent shelter over them to keep the water out of the trays and the nesting material, and so the bees have a reasonably calm place to rest if it's windy or whatever. And so now the pollinating begins. This is the first field of canola that we planted, and so it is the first one to go into flower. Anyway, it's kind of an exciting time as everything starts to mature, and we're halfway through. For me, it's kind of like riding a bull for 8 seconds, the growing season. You hang on tight and go like crazy and try not to fall off somewhere in the middle. All right, so checking on the cows this morning, and I can see from the road, there's the water coming out of that spout over by the water trough, and I'm actually quite a long ways away, but I could see it, so I know I don't have to drive over there to check the water on this quick pass, but we'll check on some of the cows. They're moving in around this pasture. We've got just about everybody moved in here now. I have a curious little guy this morning. What's you so curious about? He's actually coming toward me instead of running away. Well, what's up, baby? So that mommy and baby got scared and they're running. Maybe I'm in between him and her. Oh, you're okay. Good morning. Oh, there, that scared you. Bye-bye. It's always interesting to see the little guys, you know, running and playing together. They do seem to enjoy being together, and they'll definitely test each other's strength and push on each other sometimes, but they also just like to, you know, play around and be silly together too. We've got a little bit of a problem here. This is an oil battery site on the ranch, and the fence, which is not our fence, is owned by the oil company. Is not in good condition at all. Obviously there's broken wire, and you can see from looking at the wire that it's 50 years old or more, and it's got joints everywhere, and it's loose, and it's broken in a few places. Anyway, so I get little calves that get kind of in this fence and get trapped. I just got one out, so he can go back out and be with his mama. So I need to call the oil company and request an update. Okay, so looks like I have a mating pair of pheasants. There's the male. Boy, he's fast. There he goes. And there's the female who's running off over this way. They were both hiding here at the pivot point. Pheasants. They do quite a bit of pheasant releasing. Oh, she's running on that road straight out ahead, sorry. So they were both close by, but they sure move fast on the ground. If you get too close, they'll definitely fly, but they move. They definitely prefer to run on the ground. So male and female pheasant. So hopefully population will continue to grow. So now it looks like we're gonna put the water onto the black beans.